Wow, way better roll. Way better.
Like, love it. I'm like, ready?
Okay. This is Haley. And this is Bailey. And you're listening to Text Me When You Land.
Welcome back to another episode of Text Me When You Land. We were formerly the Unleashed Club, and now we are Text Me When You Land. What's new with you, Bailey?
I am really excited because my birthday's coming up, so I'm getting excited for that. We're in the middle of Evan's trials, and yeah, there's just a lot going on over here, but
the
all good stuff.
Also,
yeah, so
you say that so casually. Birthdays and Olympic trials, those are pretty big deals. How old are you turning?
26. Which I'm excited about.
No more parents' insurance.
I know, it's the last thing. The last time that you have something like 16, you get your driver's license.
Unless you decide to run for president. If you decide to run for
This
president, that's like your 40s.
That's definitely not on my list, but yes.
I would have voted for you.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
What's
you got one. I have my surgery coming up for my endometriosis and my ovarian cyst, so that's exciting, and it should be pretty simple. It's laparoscopic, so it's nothing too like invasive or anything like that. But I'm just excited to be able to like resume my life and exercise normally. Like you've been running, and I'm like trying to like maybe start doing that, but I can't.
I'm so excited for you.
I can like feel it.
Yeah, it's so nice. I am really excited though if I can get you into running, because then we can be little running buddies when we hang out. Slow,
have you seen that episode of Friends?
Buddies.
Have you seen that episode of Friends with Phoebe?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
it's
about.
Phoebe and Rachel. Yeah. I'm going to be Phoebe.
I was thinking of the one where they went, oh, yeah, that one. But I was thinking of the one, what was it, where with Monica and Chandler. Yeah.
That's where you like, that would happen too. I would be Chandler. You'd be like, let's go. And I'd be like,
But if we were chatting and make it go by so fast, I feel like that would help. Because every time I go, like I'll do a run, but I also do walks and like I call people. And I feel like it goes by so fast when you're distracted and doing something.
Yeah, it makes sense. I also hope that I'm not as itchy by the time that happens.
It seriously makes such a couple runs in that went away, and I would get itchy every single time I'd run before.
Like runner's itch is the randomly. Worst. I just want to I just want to stop running together when that happens. It's painful.
Yeah, it's the worst. I'm really excited about today's episode because this is something you and I have talked about so much this year, and trying to find the balance between listening to outside opinions and the people that we value their opinions, but also figuring out what we really want and respecting those boundaries. And I think it's really hard when someone is telling you their opinion and you really want to hear it, but also trying to figure out what you want. It can be,
or when you really don't want to hear it and you're like, please stop talking.
Please don't tell me what you think.
I really don't care what you have to say, even if it's the same thing I'm going through. I don't want to know. It's funny to me because it's like, no matter what it is, good or bad, big or small, people have an opinion on everything. And once you kind of come to grips with that and learn to deal with it, there's a time and a place to share opinions. And like unsolicited advice is one thing, obviously. But like when someone's pregnant, I feel like everyone's horror stories when they're pregnant come out. And it's like, why are we trying to spook this like future mom here? Like, can we not? Like, can we stop talking about that? Anyway, that's totally just a topic for another time. But I just like, everyone's so opinionated.
They really are. And I feel like it comes down to the big things in life, but also like the little things. I feel like obviously big things like where you want to live. I feel like a lot of people have opinions, like friends, family, and you really do want to hear their opinions, but also you're trying to figure out where you want to live or what you want to do. And like both of us being on the go and in different spots, we've definitely dealt with that. Or like, I don't know, I feel like there's just so many different things, and it's so hard to figure out. Like we've called each other so many times and just talk through it. Like, am I feeling this way and this is what I want? Or is this because somebody else is telling me this is a good idea and I'm starting to feel like it, but then when you step back, you're like, wait, that's not what I want. And it can be so confusing.
No, it's true. I was thinking, you said where you want to live. Like everybody has an opinion. Oh, well, this is the best place or this is the worst place. Like, wasn't it the other day that we were like, oh, would you ever consider living in Florida? And didn't Evan was like, no. No, he would not. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I love to hear like people's reasonings behind certain like decisions they make. And I think that's the difference between me and a lot of people. And you too, even. I think that we actually like hear people. And I think at times that can also bite us, back a little bit, because it's like, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to be respectful and hear what you say. But at the same time, like, sometimes people just don't want to hear it.
Yeah, and I think those big life decisions are really hard to make in general if you don't know. And when you hear those things, it's like, it's just, it makes it that much more confusing. Like, I feel
It
like
really
we get
does.
asked all the time, like, oh, where do you want to be? Oh, you obviously want to be here. And we're like, we don't really know. Like, we've talked about it and
You're
we
like,
have an
this is new
idea,
news
but
to me.
yeah, literally.
Literally, like I saw this thing that said someone tell the oldest child in the family it's okay to move away from home. Now I don't know if that's 100% accurate. Obviously, I don't think it would be, but I think it's pretty. I mean, I've a lot people right off the top of my head. Yeah, I think they are living back home, and I'm like, I wonder if that's familiar. If there's a job, I was actually going to ask people, and I'm curious, like when determining a place to live, what's a bigger priority, family or the job? I've heard it both ways. I've heard people say the
Oh,
job and
I can
family.
answer this
So
easy.
I think I know what you're gonna say. What are you
Well,
gonna
we
say?
literally, Evan and I had this discussion yesterday.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, it's something really similar. And I definitely am all about the family because I feel like those are the people you want to be surrounded by. And yeah, there are really great opportunities. And I think there's a time and a place, to be honest. Like I said, where we're at right now has taken us to travel. And our jobs are what it's the reason we are traveling, especially because of Evan's campaign. But I was like, I'm all for this life. But the second we have kids, I think it's really important for me that we're around family. And I think
And do you
that's
think
when it
this
would
plays a part with you being an only child too?
probably, I'm sure there's like parts of it and how close I am with my parents. But I know that that's something I really want. And I'm all for the other side of it right now. Like, let's travel, let's be away, let's see the world, let's do all that. But like when we have kids, and I even said, like, when we have little ones, like, let's pick up and like travel. I don't want it to be a big deal. But at some point in their life, when they turn like 5 and school starts, they do need some consistency. And I would love that to
Yeah,
be
a
near family.
routine and yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really well
So
put
I guess
because
that's both
I mean,
answers.
yeah, and well, it's really beneficial for you and Evan because your families are in the same state. I mean, yeah, California's a huge state, so I mean, really depends on how close they are. But I mean, I think they're a healthy. They're
They're
not
only an hour
too far
away.
away. It's
So
not like San
yeah.
Francisco and San Diego. You know, it's
Yeah.
they're not too bad. So it's really good for you guys that way you're not constantly having to jet back and forth. Because like with Bryce and I, his family's in Washington and mine's in Colorado, and
Yeah.
so
And you'd have to
that
pick.
can yeah, and that's really hard. I mean, we've already decided we're never going to live in Washington, and that's not because of family though. It's because the weather. I'm not a fan of the weather there, and so I mean, there's lots of decisions as to why someone would pick a place to live. But I think for me, I constantly hear from my family, we should live in Colorado. We should live in Colorado, and it gets exhausting. And sometimes I find myself like, oh yeah, that's what I want. When I'm there, I'm like, yeah, this is what I want. I love that, and
And
I
then
love being with my
you're
family.
calling me and texting me, and I'm like,
Yeah, and I'm
Taylor,
like,
let's
we're
just
putting a
take
down
a
payment
step
on a
back.
house.
Let's just
We're
think
getting a
about
house
this.
right now, and it's gonna be great. And then I like leave, and I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa,
We
slow down.
collectively decided, even though it has nothing to do with me, that we make no decisions while you are in Colorado.
I know. It's kind of like you never make a decision or like say something when you're angry, or like even like hungry too. Like they say you shouldn't go grocery shopping when you're hungry. I'm like, I don't agree with that actually, because then I know what snacks I want to eat when I'm hungry. You know?
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, but
But
yeah, you might
it
buy
is
too
hard.
much, but
That's such a good one for like outside voices. It's like when you're there, it's like you really value their opinion and you want to be there and it's exciting. But when you step back, you remember all the reasons that maybe you guys are in California right now. And that doesn't mean
Mhm.
forever. That doesn't mean it can't change down the road. But for right now, you guys know what you want, or
Yeah,
for the next month. It doesn't even have to be that long. You guys know what you want right this second and it can
yeah,
change. I think something that's so cool is how you guys have moved around and you guys have tried different places. And that's something like I think is so important because honestly, I probably would have been somebody who just settled down, lived where I grew up, like never really lived anywhere else. And I think it's so important, at least like for me, like I'm all for like live different places, try different things. Like Evan and I were talking, I was like, I'd love to live in Nashville for 6 months. Like I know that's not our forever place, at least like doesn't seem like it right now. But I'd love to try it for a little while before we have kids and before we really need to pick a place to settle down. So I think it's cool you guys are trying different places too.
yeah, for sure. And it's interesting to me because, like you said, family makes a big impact on where you live, especially when you have like kids. And it's funny because I feel like there's so many things that we were talking about earlier, like how many kids you should have and when you should have kids, and this is the best time. No, this is the best time. And like Bryce and I are coming up on 7 years of marriage, and I'm like, holy cow! Like by the time my sister was my age, she had 3 babies, like 3 children.
I
I'm
know, you
like,
told me that the other day, and I was like, "Wow, that's wild." We'd be
I
in
know.
would we even have met? I don't even know if we would have even met because you would
I
have
we
we'd been in
we
such
wouldn't have
different
because
spots in life.
I wouldn't have started Instagram. I wouldn't have done any of
Yeah.
that. And so it's just weird how life goes. But it's just weird to me because someone was saying, "Oh, like, oh, I'm so glad I had babies young because then they'll be out before I'm 50 and I'll be able to enjoy life." And I'm like, "Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa." I love when people say that because as someone who has family who did not move out when they were 18, that doesn't always happen, guys. Like
I mean,
people
I
don't
look back Evan and I have been, like, back and forth at my parents' house for
I
multiple
know.
like, anytime we're not in the RV, we're back at my parents'
I'm
house.
like, that's the stupidest reason, in my opinion, to have a child. And I hear me like complaining about opinionated people being so opinionated, like whatever. But it's just like one of those things. I'm like, I don't think you should have a kid based off of what age you are, or I mean, I don't have it in high school, but like if you're, ready to start looking at starting a family, but the only reason you're doing that is because you feel like you're getting old and someone's telling you, oh, you're so old, or oh, you don't have kids yet. Like, what? That's not right. Like you should have kids because you want to have kids, not because you feel like you have to have kids or because you feel like you're getting old or you want them out by a certain
Or
age or
you're
whatever.
following this timeline that everyone's, like, holding you to.
Exactly. There's no timeline for it. And trust me, what's meant to happen will happen. Like I know tons of people who feel like the pressure to have children and they just like either A, they're having children and I mean, they're great parents. So I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but they're struggling and I'm like I just feel so bad because they're like yeah we had kids so young and we can't keep up with times right now with inflation being so high and they can't and I'm like that is so hard like on a family and so things happen regardless. Health happens and whatever. And people so just slow down. Like don't let people fool you into thinking that having kids young or even when you're old is all that glorious. It's about you and making sure you're in the right mind. Same with getting married. Like don't just get married because you feel like you're getting old. I know I just feel like that's a huge thing people are facing right now. They're like, "Oh, I'm in a quarter life crisis right now."
I totally agree. I feel like it's this thing where people start to feel like they have to rush because there's this timeline. And I even catch myself. I feel like I have this year. It's something I've talked about, but I'm really finding like enjoying the moment, living in the moment. Like these big things are going to come, but like don't feel this pressure from outside voices. But I even catch myself sometimes being like, oh, by the time I'm 30, this. And I'm like, no, like just slow down. Like it's all going to happen when it should. But I remember, like, I hear people being like, oh, well, I'm already 25 and I should have done this. And I'm like, that's not where life was supposed to take you. And that's okay. Like enjoy where you're at because it's all going to work out instead of rushing it because you feel like you should be there. But it's just like it's interesting though because it comes from these outside questions or people saying things and or Instagram like staring like comparing to other people's lives and being like, "Oh, well, they have that, shouldn't I?" And it's like, "No, everybody's life is so different and there's literally no comparison between lives, relationships, when you should start a family, when you should get married, all the above."
Where you should live. Well, that reminded me. So, back in 1991, I wasn't born yet. My dad and my mom put an offer in on a house, and their offer was accepted. And a day before the closing, and they were supposed to move in, get the keys, it fell through. Something happened, and they were devastated. And my mom and my dad were just like, "We don't know why this happened." And my mom was just heartbroken. And then they ended up finding another house somewhere else, and it's the house actually they're in now. It's my childhood home. And a few years later, that's the home I came to when I was born. And they just still never understood why that house fell through. Now, fast forwarding to 2012, I believe. So the high school district next to us, so there was one district and the one next to us, there was a school shooting, and my friend from middle and elementary school was shot and killed. Had I been in that school district and moved into that first house, I would have been at that high school. And who knows, I could have been with her when it happened because we were friends. And I don't know what would have happened. And it's so unfortunate how those little circumstances happen. And, I don't like to dwell on it, but it happened how it was supposed to happen. So you can force something as much as you want, but things happen for a reason. I truly believe that. And so when you try to go against everything that you're being told or what you're like inside of you and you're listening to everyone around you or society, it's not going to happen the way you want. You're going to feel like there's a bunch of doors being slammed in your face, and in the end, just you gotta have to embrace it, even when it's hard.
100%. That is such a crazy story, but it's true. Like those things 100% happen. And I feel like it's even like, I always would think this, like if I was running late to work or something like that when I was a preschool teacher and like I was trying to like rush there and I was like, you know what? This happened for a reason. Maybe if I left 5 minutes earlier, it would have been something different. And you just gotta,
Mm-hmm.
yes, okay, maybe set your alarm a little earlier, whatever. But I'm just saying, like, everything happens for a reason in the sense of like, you don't know what would have happened if you did it a different way.
It's
And it's the
true.
same thing with life. If you can slow down and actually enjoy where you're at, one, you're gonna enjoy it. And two, like, you can, like you said, you can put all this pressure and try to force a situation, but that's not the path you're supposed to take. So it's like, can you step back and just like enjoy where you're at? And yeah, there's going to be hard times. Like your parents were bummed when that fell through, but later in life, like there was a reason for that. And I think that's something that a lot of times it's hard to do in the moment. And I think, you know, you forget that. But I really like, I've been really thinking about it lately. It's just like, slow down and enjoy where you're at because we're never going to be back to this stage of life and be looking forward to these things we're so excited about.
I told Bryce the other day, I was like, how does it feel that we will never, I mean, I'm gonna keep with the word never because like the odds of this happening are pretty slim to none. I'm like, we will never be alive for the year 23 again. And he was like, whoa. I'm like, yeah. He's like, crazy. You know, I was like, you don't care. And he's like, no. I was like, okay, well, I thought it was crazy. I'm like, every minute is a minute closer to death, which is, in my opinion, a really morbid way of looking at life. But at the same time, if you look at it from a
Just
glass half
slightly.
full, if you look at it from a
Just
glass half
slightly.
full, it definitely helps you be like, okay, hold on. I'm never going to get this time back. Like, I see so many people, like, around probably our parents' ages, probably in their 50s, 60s, maybe approaching 70s. And they're just like, it sucks getting old because your mind still feels young, but your body can't do necessarily the things that you used to be able to do. And I'm like, that is so interesting. Like, and that's so sad because you can fight aging as much as you want with Botox fillers and cosmetic surgeries and whatever it is. And yeah, you look great on the outside, but like, how are you on the inside? And are you actually taking time to enjoy these moments now? Are you going to be full of regret if something were to tragically just take away your life? And I
Wow, we're
can't.
just getting real deep
I
on this.
know it's true though, but like you have to be able to embrace those things and just enjoy where you're at now. And life is a
I'm over
gift, in
here
my
like, oh,
opinion.
you just got to stay in shape. You got to keep working out. We can't sit down and stop. And you're like, and one day we are going to die.
Death is all around. I mean, it's something I fear a lot. I'm not going to deny that. I fear death, and I don't like to discuss it because it's morbid and it's sad. But at the same time, when I look at the other side of it, life and living, that's what helps me keep going, you know, and experiencing what we have today, and not letting those little things and the way people view other people's lives as like a big deal. Like I don't want, because everyone else is having children right now or buying a house right now or, you know, I don't know, doing whatever it is that you feel pressured to do right now. I don't want that to be something that influences why I do anything. I
I
want to
feel
do it
like
for
a lot,
me.
yeah, for sure. And I feel like a lot of people end up putting the pressure maybe on you because they aren't happy with the decisions they made or what they think should happen. And it's like my lifestyle. I'm sure there's people that are like, what are they doing living in an RV, traveling all over? But I really honestly don't even think about it. I'm like, this is our life. I love it. It's so fun. But, you know, like if I would listen to people that say, I've definitely had some people make some interesting, like when I tell them our story, they're like, most people are very supportive, but I've had the occasional, like, oh, okay, like that's what you do. But these are moments like I'm never going to forget. We are living these, like, we're never going to come back and be able to be like, oh, let's just live in an RV whenever we want and travel wherever. Like, you have to be able to do what's best for you without caring what other people think you should be doing. Because it is easy to get caught up in what maybe people my age are doing, you know, buying a house or settling down or getting married or doing whatever. But this is where we're at right now, and we're going to get there and do that stuff, just not today. Maybe
Yeah,
tomorrow, but not
it's
today.
true. I know a lot of people who, when I say like, "Oh, I'm just traveling a lot with my husband right now. We're just kind of enjoying life, and it's just so rewarding, and we're just loving life." And they go, "Oh, wait till you have kids. You think it's rewarding now? Just wait till you have children." And I'm like, I'm not discrediting that. I'm sure it's very rewarding if that's something you're wanting. And I'm like, when that time comes, I will let you know. But it's just like I don't understand why is the steps we've talked about this in the episode pressures from society, and I can't remember exactly how I worded it, but why is it that we go, you know, school, high school, and then it's supposed to be college, and then a job, and then you're supposed to get married, and then you're supposed to, buy a house and then have a baby. Why is that the order? Like, why can't we deviate from that? And why are we judged for doing that?
Yeah, and it's interesting because then you talk to people that are maybe older than us, and on the other side of things, I've had so many people stop me and be like, "I love what you guys are doing. Like, enjoy this," because like I rushed to the next thing. It's not that they're not happy with their life, but they were like, "We didn't stop to think about what else we could do. We just followed what we
Yeah.
thought we
It's
should
just like,
do." And
okay, it's the next step. It's the next step. Like I asked Bryce, like, why do people have babies? Like, why? And he's like, what do you mean why? That's a loaded question because they want to have a family. And I was like, okay, yeah, I know that. But like, he's like, it's the next step. And I was like, why? And he's like, I don't know. I was just like being an annoying little 4-year-old. I'm just like, why? 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 It's just like, and sometimes you just don't have answers to everything. And I guess I'll just have to be content with that. And I mean, there was something you said to me a few weeks ago, and I thought it was funny. And I actually think about that often. It was, you said, what do people even do if they don't have kids in their 30s and 40s? What do you even do?
it's just like my perspective because I'm so like I think I've always pictured my life like, oh, that's what I'm gonna
Yeah,
do in
and
that
that's what
age.
you
But like,
want, and so that's fine. I just thought it was so funny because I've never thought about that, and I'm like,
like that
so
way,
if you're
yeah.
listening and you are in your 30s or 40s and you don't have children, let us know what you do. I mean, obviously, I think I already know the answers to that, but I want to know, like, what
And
are you doing?
everybody's life's different. And I just am always like, okay, like there's this big chunk of the middle of your life where it's like filled with all these activities. And that's what you see, obviously. So that's what you're used to seeing. But I'm always like, do you keep doing what you're doing? Do you do like what we're doing now and like travel? You know, everyone obviously does it so differently. But yeah, I remember having that conversation. You're like, well, I've actually thought of it the other way. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting perspective too. Cause I've just always known I've wanted kids. That's something I've always known.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a dream and something you want your whole life. I truly admire people that, have something that they want and they just go for it. It's truly encouraging, and I find a lot of admiration from people like that because there's not a lot of motivation and what's the word I'm looking for is I don't it's not momentum. It's like kind of like motivation, but it's like desire, I guess. You just don't see a lot of people doing that nowadays and talking about it. Like they just do it because it's the next thing. And I love hearing that there's people who actually have a passion for wanting to start a family or for wanting to have a certain job, and they just like work so hard and they like are excited for that because oftentimes I see a lot of people who are like, oh crap, the pregnancy sticks positive, or oh hey, I didn't want that job, or I don't know, this kind of like are getting by, and it's just like I know that everything, like I've said, works out in the end, but it's cool to see when someone has something on their radar and then it comes full circle for them. I get really excited.
I think that's a great reminder, though, that it's okay if your dreams change and your passions change. And we're taught to go to high school, go to college, and then start your job. But I feel like so many people in their mid 20s are like, wait, I don't know if this is the right job for me. I kind of want to change it up or switch it up. But I think a lot of people get really lost because you feel like you're supposed to stick with what you're doing. And
Whoa, that was
what?
weird. I was literally just thinking in my head, I just feel so lost. And then you said that, and I was like, did I
Right
verbalize
now you
that?
feel so lost?
Yeah, I was just about to say that. And then you
Oh, that's
said
so
that.
interesting. Yeah, I think it's a really well, I want to hear why, but I think it's a really common thing that
It
you
is.
in your 20s and maybe in your 30s too. I'm obviously in my 20s, so that's my experience and watching people around me is you feel like you found your passion, then all of a sudden you're like, "Wait, that was my passion for now, but I kind of think it's changing." And you feel guilty, I think, for it changing because you thought you figured it out. And then it's like a whole thing you have to deal with because it's okay, but I feel like you're taught that it's not okay in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you feel like you're broken or something's wrong with you.
You feel like you're failing maybe? You're not haven't like
Yeah, or
you
like
there's
you're stuck, or like you're not progressing in life because you're not doing what everyone else is doing, or
yeah.
you don't have
Wait,
some
but
sort
so
of sense of
you were just
accomplishment.
about to say you're
I mean,
lost. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. I was like, I just kind of feel, I mean, not fully lost, but like, I've let it go a lot because I was putting so much pressure on myself for it, and I just like I had to like escape it because it was consuming. But like having a family, starting a family, making that decision for me is not like easy. Like my friends were telling me, they're like, "Oh yeah," we were just like, "Yeah, we know. Okay, it's time. It's right. We're ready." And I was like, "Really? Okay." I'm like, I wish that was like for me. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know if I'm fighting it. Maybe because it's something I'm terrified to do, and I do want to have a family, but at the same time, I'm loving these adventures and just the time with Bryce and I know I'll never get this back because once you have a family, it's never going to be just you two again. Like it's not, and that's just like how it is. And people understand that bringing a life is so serious. I take it so seriously. Like I watched my sister with her 4 kids. I've seen my friends do it. It's not easy work. And I've seen it from all circumstances, like from having health challenges from when a baby's born to having learning disabilities when they grow up. I mean, everyone has something. And I know that it's no cakewalk, but it's just like I get so scared thinking about it. And I'm like, I just don't know when the time is right for Bryce and I. And everyone's like, oh, you'll just know. And I'm like, really? I don't think I will. Like, I think, and
I
I saw
feel
this.
like you're gonna know in a sense of it's gonna be more based on you guys' feelings than other people
Oh, for
asking you
sure.
or telling you. And I think that's what gets really confusing too for you, which I get
Yeah.
because I
And
dealt
like
with it in
the
different ways.
closer, I don't know, maybe do you ever experience this? Maybe I'm alone on this. I don't know. When a decision or something big is like gets closer, you feel like it could be soon. Does that make you like want to run away from it? That happens to me a lot.
No, that's not.
You're like, not at all. Yeah, me either.
No, not at all.
Yeah, no, I don't feel that either.
But I think everybody's different. I think that can come from fear of what can happen and fear of are you making the right decision and all this pressure. And I think that is really common with a big life decision to have this moment of, is this what I want? Should I go the other direction? Or am I sure? And I think that can lead to a lot of questioning when there's a lot of pressure put on a decision.
No, it's
Put on a
true.
decision.
It's true. And I saw this video the other day, and it was this lady saying that if you're in this time where you're debating on having kids and you aren't fully like yes, then your answer is no. And I was like, what? And she has like a whole apparently podcast about like whether or not someone's ready to like have kids and should you start a family. And I never actually listened to it because I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to listen to that. But it's just one of those things that I'm like, But she was saying that there's so much in life that you need to be certain of when you do it, and you can't go back. And she says you'll regret anything that's good in life, regardless of how excited you are, on any bad day. She says it happens no matter how much you love them, how much you love kids, your job, your hobbies. On a bad day, you will regret it anytime. And I was like, that's true. Like, I've regretted half of the things that I absolutely love on a bad day. I mean, being completely honest here, like, there's days I've regretted having Olive. There's days I've regretted marrying Bryce. Do I actually feel like I guess regret's not the right word. I just like there's like feelings where I'm like, I'm just so frustrated right now. But is that actually how I feel? No, that's not how I feel. And that's normal. I think that's being human.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times when those feelings come up, you jump to those big life decisions that can maybe drastically change your life in a way that you're like, oh, what if it went that way? Would it have been different or would it have been better or whatever it is? And that's why you jump to such a big thing when you are angry because you have so many emotions and you're like, okay, well, let me look at it that way. And I think that probably helps sometimes in those moments, even though it doesn't seem like it. It's like you don't really think that, but when you have a lot of the feelings, it comes out in ways you don't always really think.
It's true. It's true. There's so many things that go along with this. And I mean, I think in the end it's that just be careful who you're taking advice from, because don't take advice from someone who, like, if you're wanting to get a new job, doing, I don't know, being a lawyer, and someone just quit their job being a lawyer or they just got sued, like they're probably not going to have the best taste in their mouth about that. Like, you just have to be really careful on who you're picking. If you're like, for me, of course, I can't necessarily fully invest myself into my family about where I should live because they're going to be biased. Like, it's just, and I love them and they want to be with me. And I think that's great. But at the same time, it's you just have to be careful on where you're getting your advice from and making sure you're staying true to yourself, because at the end of the day, the decisions you make will affect your life whether you want them to or not.
I think it's really hard to really figure out who you want to take advice from and their opinions and listen to what they're saying. But really, I think it comes down to figuring out what you really want and then taking those opinions in. If it's the right opinion and the right person, it's okay to take outside opinions. That's what you want. You want to go to people, you want to talk to them, you want to talk it through. But I think really like taking the time to sit on it and figure it out for yourself is so important because it's hard to figure it out for yourself, and a lot of times I think you want answers from other people, but it really is comes down to what you want.